welcome everybody. Today we have with us, I'm not going to give a long bio because you'll find a lot about Chitra in the conversation. But I do have to say that Chitra, 21 books translated to over 30 languages. You're in the 20 most influential global Indian women writers list and many, many, many awards, which we'll talk about. And we are truly, truly thrilled. This is a conversation we've been doing with 49 influential women of Indian origin from India. And the goal is to really celebrate women and also discuss what are some of the things that helped you, what are some of the things that you see happening, and in what way so many of the professional women we have here can continue their journeys, etc. So it's a very casual conversation, and we'll have audience ask questions also. So, your bio is everywhere, so I'm not going to go through the bio, but I thought we would get right into it. And thanks for joining us from Houston. And
My
it's late
pleasure.
your time, and I think this is after hours of after writing time, so probably good time to catch you. So first of all, thanks for being with us, Chitra. Thanks a lot for your time.
My pleasure, Lakshmi, always.
Yeah. And Chitra, I wanted to talk a little bit about, first of all, I have to say that when you wrote Arranged Marriages, it had an American Book Award in 97, and now your Independence, about the three sisters, also got the American Book Award after 25 years. And in between, there have been many, many awards. But how does it feel? First of all, congratulations. I think this is the latest award. Congratulations on the award. And how does it feel to keep up the juices after all these years? It's not like you got something 25 years ago and that was it. You're just keeping up. So, how does this award feel? First, big celebration about that.
Well, I feel very blessed. I feel very blessed. I have to say, I was very surprised because I didn't think they gave that award twice to the same person. So, when they informed me, I was like, "Oops, maybe they forgot that they gave it to me."
25 years ago.
But then when I talked to them, they said, no, we really felt you deserved it for this particular book, Independence, which made me very happy because this novel is the story of India's freedom struggle, and especially
Yeah.
as it affected women. So
Hmm.
both of those topics are very dear to my heart. So,
Yeah.
I just feel thankful. What can I say? The
It's probably
ideal
are you
stuff.
the first person to have gotten it twice?
I
Probably,
think,
right?
and maybe there was another person before this.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, but whatever, we'll celebrate. We'll take our
Yes,
wins
we'll
where
celebrate.
we can.
It's like,
But
okay, they don't do this often, so I feel
they
very
don't do this. That's good enough for us.
yes.
No, it's really, really great. And I think, I mean, as you said, it's about women, it's about independence, the topics that are close to you. And from that point of view, your talks have been, as you yourself say, very unabashedly feminist focused, etc. So to talk about the first book, Arranged Marriages, in some ways, it's born out of your immigrant experience. There's a dual cultural living, etc. And it has progressed from there into a lot of things. In fact, I don't know if many people know, but you first wrote a book of poems about Yuba City, and that's when I first knew you in the 90s. And so tell us a little bit about your immigrant experience and how was this writer was born. I mean, you always wrote. I mean, you were always good, but where did this want to publish something start for you?
Well, as you just reminded the audience also that I started as a poet, I really started writing seriously after I came to this country. So I never thought I would be a writer. And I had
Mm.
no idea whether I had any talent or not. But finding myself in the United States alone, away from family, that was a very different experience for me. And to be an immigrant in a culture so different from the Indian culture that I knew and loved, it was at once exciting, but it was also very disorienting. And all around me, I could see that other women were having similar experiences. So,
Mhm.
I just started writing down those stories. I felt
Yeah.
those were important stories just for me to make sense of my life. And I hoped that if those stories meant something to me, they would mean something to people around me. Also, to an Indian audience, but also to a larger immigrant audience,
Yes.
to a larger women's audience. And finally, I hoped that it would reach all readers,
Mainstream on, yes,
everywhere,
everyone.
because I think the woman's story is a universal story. The immigrant story remains a very important story. I just wanted to
Yeah.
share those things.
Yeah.
I didn't know
So
if
when you
it would be
started,
any good.
I mean, when you started, getting a book published is not easy. So it's once you have some success, that's a different story. But first, when you started, because a lot of women, they all start a lot of things. The beginning is always tough. I mean, you've been at it since the 90s till now. This is not an overnight success, for you. How was it initially? How easy or difficult was it to get the book published? Like, how did you know how to go about where to go?
Yeah, it was not easy. I did a lot of research, and in those days, pre-internet, research was a
Yes.
lot harder. So I had to actually
Yes.
go to the library and do research. And there were books like Writer's Market that I researched.
Mm,
So I knew where to send stories, what kinds of publications were there. I went to the library and got hold of as many of these publications um, as I could. And I was a student. I didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't buy a lot of things. But I
yeah.
borrowed from the library, I read, and then I started sending out my poems mostly at that time, and then
Hmm.
slowly stories. And I didn't know if they would be accepted. And in the beginning, a lot of them were not. They would be rejected, they'd be sent back. I'd be
Yeah.
all depressed. And then, but then I would say, I'm not going to give up. I really think that this is what I
Yeah.
want to do. And so I think that was really important. And I always tell my students, or, as you know, I do a lot of activist work with women who have been in abusive situations and are starting over. It's very hard for them. So I
Hmm.
share my experience and I say it was hard for me too in a different way. It was hard, but we can't give up. So I think
Hmm.
I really had that sense of I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep trying. And I'm just going to keep trying, even if it takes a long time. And I think
Yeah.
that probably helped me a lot. And then
Yeah.
I took some classes at just a local community college, but I
Hmm.
was very blessed because the professor in that class, he knew my agent and he said, look, I really think you have a lot of talent. Let me introduce you to this agent. Now, she may or may not accept your work, but she liked my work. She accepted my work. And once I had an agent, it became a lot easier
Yeah. I
because
think
she
there's a
would send
great,
out the work.
yeah, because there are two great lessons in this. And one is the persistence, like you just do your job, but also finding the right team, the person who will take your work somewhere else. If you had to find the publisher or you self-publish or you try to market, these are all very difficult things. I think it's a combination of the two. I think that's very, very important. And continuing on, you're actually taking from what you said about the activism. Which came first? Was it the writing or the activism? Because you
The
wrote about a lot
activism,
of immigrant, yeah. So you
the
wrote about a
activism
lot
came.
of immigrant women. So did it come out of the women? I mean, you're co-founder of Maitri in the Bay Area, which takes care of
Right.
South Asian women who have been in abusive marriages or whatever, to give them a second life. So did Maitri start first or did you start writing first?
The activism came first because I started volunteering at the Women's Center at the University of California at Berkeley, where I was
Mm-hmm.
getting my PhD. And then once I graduated, I continued volunteering for the support network. That was a mainstream organization for domestic violence. But
Mm-hmm.
then we found out that women from our community didn't feel comfortable going there. So a group of friends and we founded Maitri. And
Mm-hmm.
all of that was going on, and I was writing on the side. And I think the two things really fed each other. My writing
Mm-hmm.
made me very um, sensitive. I think writing does help. Art of all kinds, I think, makes us more sensitive, more empathetic. So it made me much more sensitive to these women. I was imagining their lives, even things that they didn't tell me, I could feel. And certainly the stories that they told me, I could feel them. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I want to write about this. And this was very tricky because, we have a confidentiality um,
Of course. Yeah.
contract, and we would never use anybody's stories. So without using particular stories, how could I write about them? That became very important. So, in Arranged Marriage and also in my first novel,
Yeah.
Mistress of Spices, there are
Right.
women who are in such situations. And it's about how do they navigate this? How do they get out of it? And my hope
Mm-hmm.
was that maybe the books will inspire some people. And in fact,
Mm-hmm.
later people have said to me that they were inspired by reading the struggles of other women, and they felt
Mm-hmm.
like they were not alone.
Yeah. And talking about the community, the South Asian community, Chitra, I think you happen to experience it in US, but is that common? Do you find that even in India, in terms of maybe even more of women feeling uncomfortable voicing really who they are or what they want, especially 30 years ago, 40 years ago, or 20 years ago, etc. What sort
Right.
of things do you see in general in South Asian women, and do you see a big change in all these years, today versus then? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference. I'll start with the US, just in terms of how well Maitri, for example, has done, or Daya, which is a similar service
Yeah.
in Houston that I'm on the advisory board of. I see that it is still difficult, and it depends each time on the woman, right? What is her educational background? What is her ability to find a job? These things will make women, if they have those abilities, they feel more confident leaving an abusive relationship, starting over. If not, it's harder. But I think we're seeing a lot more women coming out and saying, I deserve safety, I deserve respect. I think this is happening in India. Also, we coordinate with organizations in India as well. And, we
Hmm.
hear stories of women who go back and forth. And especially in the big cities, I think it's becoming a lot more acceptable that a woman should leave an abusive relationship and start over on her own. Is it easy? It is never easy. It is always
Yeah.
very, very difficult, especially in our South Asian context, our Indian context, where, we're brought up saying, please make a success of your marriage.
Mhm. I mean,
Please
just
put
stay in
up
it
with
no
some
matter
things.
what. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Put up with some things. It's not a good idea to leave a marriage. And,
Yeah.
who wants to leave a marriage? You get married with the hope that you will stay there. It's only when
Yeah.
things become very abusive that you realize, no, as a human being, I
Hmm.
need to make some choices.
Yeah. Did you see any correlation between an economic strata and the abuse, Chitra? Is it that, or is it inversely proportional? Like the more wealthy you are, the abuse is more guided, or there's absolutely no correlation between an economic strata or abuse?
And there was
Uh,
no correlation. Okay, I'll say there's not much correlation. We had women from extremely high social strata, extremely expensive homes who stepped out of their home, who had to go into hiding because of the abuser who was really dangerous. And we had women who came from, a very modest backgrounds and did not have jobs, could not speak English. So we continue to see across
mhm.
all these different divides. But I would say numbers wise, obviously, women who are less educated, less economically viable will have these problems because it is harder for them and therefore they put up with more. I think
Right,
a lot of
right.
times when an educated woman sees this situation coming up, she can see it up front and she can either bypass it or she can become really strong and say, hey, if you want this relationship to continue, you got to stop it, or I will walk out. She has more options, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Emotionally, she is pretty much in a bad place as anyone who's being abused, but on these
Mm-hmm.
other levels, she has options. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, some of my stories show that as well.
Right. And, coming back to your stories, I think you're right that I think I know, even I heard some women say, hey, I read this and I could relate to it and I decided to leave it. I mean, sometimes holding a mirror to your situation helps you deal with it also. And
Yes.
and continuing on that, I mean, you also have not just in the current world, even in the mythological world, we look at women a certain way. We are used to characters in a certain way. Especially you started with Draupadi in Palace of Illusions, and I remember we're talking about Sita. Why is it Ramayana, not Sita? Like it's sort of even from a point of view of Sita. Where did you start thinking about that? Because it's one thing to fictionalize in the current scenario, but to now really think of something we've all read all our lives and almost think from a different perspective. You're not changing the facts, but different perspectives. So, how did this whole Palace of Illusions idea come to you?
Well, when I was growing up in India, in Bengal, I was very blessed because I had a grandfather who would tell me all the old stories. So he would tell me and the cousins all these old stories from the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. And I loved these stories. They are amazing stories. They show us so much about human life, and they're also very exciting just as tales. So as I grew up, I would read and reread these stories. And I was always, from teenage years, I think I started thinking, wait, we never hear from the women. We only hear what the men are thinking, what they're going through. The women are there, but they have not been given voice and they're portrayed in a particular way. So, in Palace of Illusions, I have Draupadi; in Forest of Enchantments, I have Sita.
Sita,
But
yes.
the common perception of these women, I did not agree with. Like Draupadi is seen as the troublemaker. She's
Yeah.
often referred to as the person who starts the Mahabharat
The
war.
Mahabharata, yeah.
This is not true. The
Yeah.
Mahabharat war was started by the Kauravas, and the
And the
Pandavas defended.
Pandavas.
But
Over a
you
piece
can't
of
put the
land.
blame on the woman. But society often does that, right? Especially if a
Hmm.
woman is outspoken and so forth, the society will often blame her. And Sita, over the years, over the centuries, she's become like she's been portrayed as meek and mild and obedient, and she puts up with everything. But when you go back to Valmiki and some of the early versions of the Ramayana, she is not that. She is pretty strong. She
Yeah.
has the courage to say, I will go to the forest. Everyone's telling her, please, you stay in the
Yeah.
stay in the palace and be safe. But she's like, no, I love Ram. My place is by his side. Even
Yeah.
after she's abducted, she has such a strong personality that Ravan never does anything to her. He keeps her imprisoned, but he does not harm her in any way. He does not violate her in any way, which shows that he really admires her. And then
Hmm.
towards the end of the story, when she's pregnant and Ram sends her unjustly to the forest, she doesn't fall apart. She's like, I will bring up these children and I'll do a good job of it. And she is such a
Hmm.
strong single mother figure, really the first one that
Yeah.
I've come across, the earliest one. So I
Yeah.
just want to retell these women's stories in their own voices,
Hmm.
um, showing their complexity, showing their strength, and hoping that they would, I don't know, that they would influence the readers, they would inspire the readers. And truly, I feel so blessed because over the years, Palace came out 15 years ago. I have received so many notes from readers saying that I was inspired and
In,
I went
in,
on and I did something
I
good.
have to tell you, when I read Palace for the first time, when I was young and I was reading these books, I always felt, like, Draupadi is brought home as a daughter-in-law, and the mother just says, "Oh, whatever you brought, share." with your
I
brothers.
know.
I
I
thought it's one thing for her to say, how did, if I am that bahu, if I'm that daughter-in-law, I came marrying one guy and suddenly she says, now I have to be with all these five people. How do I feel? I always felt like, how can the guy says, okay, I'll do whatever the mom says, but what about what I want? Like, do I really want to
Yes.
be
Yeah.
with all these
What are
five
my
people?
rights? What are
What are
my
my
rights?
rights, my likes, my dislikes? I married you, not all your brothers. Why should I do it just because your mom says? That's the one thing. I mean, Mahabharata is my favorite book because I think it has answers to most of the past questions I had, not for the future questions I have, but I that bothered me always,
Yeah.
is that why should you give value to what your mother says and not value to what your wife wants? Or did anybody even ask her? Of course, maybe if she said, "Hey, this is great," I want to be with all
No,
five,
I
that's
don't
a
think she
different thing.
I don't think she said it
So
was
when I
great.
read the book, I was so happy because I think it's that old African proverb, right? Unless the lion start telling the stories, the story will always glorify the hunter. So
Yes.
I was so happy that I think you were the first one who did it from a different perspective. And in every marriage, every relationship, every work environment, if it's told from the woman's point of view, I think it'll be a very different story, you know.
And that is my project, to tell
Yeah,
the story from the woman's point of view. And I'm never trying to whitewash the women. It's not like they are virtuous creatures,
right. Yeah,
100%. They're human. And that's
yeah,
also very important. We shouldn't
yeah,
hold women to some kind of, unreal standard. They're human. Let's
yeah,
appreciate them for what they are. And I think all my heroines are
yeah,
complicated and they have their
sure.
positive sides and they make their mistakes.
Yeah, and there is
You know,
jealousy, there is doubt, there is
they lose
anger,
their
all
tempers,
that is,
of course.
all that is. So, extending that to the work environment a little bit, Chitra, in terms of women at workplace, etc. What are the things you think women should do more of? Because I think, first of all, expressing your perspective, expressing where you're coming from, expressing what you feel is important. And I feel personally a lot of times that women put their hand up even before it's asked of them. I mean, we do more than you feel you need to prove more than you need to. Just from, just doing a different perspective, the way you see it differently, how can women express themselves in a way that the workplace becomes more, not even accepting, more understanding of their point of view?
Right. I think that's a great question. And, every once in a while, I'm asked to give talks at organizations for the
Yeah.
women employees, and this often comes up exactly this.
Hmm.
And one of the things I suggest, and, we see this in Forest of Enchantments also at the end when Sita is by herself pregnant and she's going to have to bring up these children, she calls on her community. So she goes to
Yeah.
Valmiki's ashram and she pretty
Yeah.
much says, here I am, you got to help me through this, and they do.
Correct.
you know
Yeah.
so in every workplace, if the women form their organization, an organization where they're going to help each other, the more senior women will mentor the younger women will ask questions and mirror some of what they're seeing in the older or more experienced women. I think that's a great place to start. We have to befriend each other. And
Hmm.
even at the university where I teach, University of Houston, I try to do this, and I have benefited from older women colleagues, just showing me the ropes, telling me, watch out for this, watch out for that. Um,
Hmm.
Telling me what was successful for them. It is so
Hmm.
helpful. So I think one of the first things for women to do is to realize I don't have to do it by myself, and there is help available. I have to look for it. Help will not come knocking on my door. So I have to
Correct.
look for it. And I can't be, um, I don't know, shy about asking for information, asking for help. So that's one side of the issue.
Hmm.
When we don't feel we are so alone, I think it's
Hmm.
just easier to stand up for our rights. And that's the
Hmm.
other thing that women have to do.
Yeah.
in the appropriate manner, stand up for our rights.
Yeah. The other thing is that how do we, especially as women at workplace, younger people, I mean, you teach writing actually, and you work with people of various ages. So, what is it that through your writing, you're teaching them in terms of being independent of their voice, independent of their expression, etc. So, as a teacher, what are the things you're teaching the younger
Well, you
women?
said it. You said it. Teaching
Yeah.
voice, teaching
Okay.
expression, teaching them that your story is important. The story you want to tell is important.
Mm-hmm.
Give what shall I say? Give value to your own voice and your own story. That's a big
Mm-hmm.
part of what I teach. And then I can
Mm-hmm.
teach them how to make it better. But to trust in your voice, to trust in your story, to trust that, I'm worthwhile. A lot of women have difficulty internalizing that concept because we have often been told that we're not. We're not
Right.
worthwhile, or at least we're not as worthwhile as
Yeah.
some other people,
Yeah.
maybe male
Yeah.
colleagues or whatever,
Yeah.
even in the family, you know.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, and I do think some of this has changed, but
Mm-hmm.
it's surprising how old ways of thinking continue. And we
Mm-hmm.
have to remember that even in the US or even in India, we can't just, when we're talking about women, we just can't think of the most educated ones, the ones who come from affluent backgrounds, the ones who've got the best education, the ones who will get a leg up when they look for a job. We can't think just of them. It's wonderful that those women are doing great. But there's a whole group of women in the middle range and the lower range, the lower economic ranges,
Mm-hmm.
educational ranges who are not. And we have to think about them. So I think
Mm-hmm.
for each one of us who have made it in some way or another, it's so important to
Yeah.
mentor others. I think
Yeah.
mentoring, I love mentoring, and I can't tell you how important
Mm-hmm.
it is.
See,
And I love my
another
mentors,
question, another
the
question,
people who
Chitra,
mentor me.
is that
Yes.
is that you tried different genres. You've been a poet, you have written short stories, you've written novels, you've written all kinds of stuff, and you also wrote about Narayan Murthy and Sudha, and it's actually a big deviation from what you have done to get to know people who are living and spend time with them and then write about them.
And to
How
write a
was that
biography.
experience for you? I mean,
Right.
first of all, when that project came to you, did you have to think about it? Tell me, it's like a
Yeah.
completely new thing
It
for
was
you.
very different. And, at first I said to the publisher, listen, I don't think I'm the best person for this because I really write fiction and I
Yeah.
like using the imagination to create my own story. But she
Yeah.
said, Chiki Sarkar of
Yeah.
Juggernaut, said
Mm.
that, look, why don't you think about it? Their story is really worth writing, and I think it
Yeah.
would be inspirational. Just their
Uh-huh.
regular story with all of their problems, all the things they faced, the fights they had. How did they manage through all of this? And when I thought about that, I really thought, I hoped that An Uncommon Love, which is the
Yeah,
name
right.
of the book, is going to inspire people. And I have received some beautiful letters
Yeah.
talking about how just they have been inspiring, both of them, but especially Sudha, I think, is very
Yeah.
inspirational because she's just so, I don't know, no
Out there.
restraints out there. She's like, uh, things come at her. Did she have
Right.
problems? Yes. Did she have challenges? Yes. But she has a very wonderful attitude of, let me try again. I'm not going to give up. And I think
Mm-hmm.
and Narayan Murthy also, that was his thing.
Mm-hmm.
He failed again, he failed again, but he was like, I won't give up. There
Mm-hmm.
were so many obstacles in his way for both of
Mm-hmm.
them, and even
Mm-hmm.
how to manage their relationship. A lot of that book is very personal. It's really
Correct.
not so
Correct.
much, it's as much about their aspirations in the public field, in the field of jobs and companies and so forth. But it's also about them being human beings and them being people with values and them trying to manage the husband-wife role and responsibilities. So all of those it was very
Yeah.
fun to
I think
write.
especially the disappointment she felt when she was not made one of the co-founders. I mean, she was working
Exactly,
at it and
exactly.
stuff. And
Yes. And how did she
it,
negotiate that? And how did he negotiate that? It's all in the
right,
book.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was very interesting because I think the other thing is you have to get them to confide in you, all those details, relive all those things. It's a very, it's a, I mean, it's kudos to you for getting it out of them because it's not, you're a stranger. I mean, it's not like you've been friends for the last 30 years. You're coming in and
Right.
and actually Narayan Murthy said that he wanted you to write the book because he loved Palace of Illusion so much that he really
That
wanted
that
you to
was
write
that
it.
was what I think
Yeah,
that made a difference to them and it made a difference to me. So,
yeah,
I felt like
yeah,
we were in sync. We were on the same page. So I felt,
yeah.
yeah, I felt
So
that.
we have a question from Rajni talking about why do women inherently feel that they aren't worthwhile?
So many times it's just from when we are so little. A lot of times this comes from family backgrounds where maybe our mothers, that's how they were brought up, and our mothers, our elder relatives, they just pass that on to us. And on some level, society is also saying that, right? So we just kind of take those in. But the important thing to remember is not so much why did this happen or, oh, how terrible is this that I have felt this way and I felt not equal and I felt like I'm discriminated against. But the most important thing to say is, what am I going to do about it right now? I can't help all those things that have happened in my past. I have sympathy for my younger self that I had to go through all of that. Yeah, sometimes when I think about my younger self and what I was told, I feel a lot of compassion for that younger self. But that's not where I am right now. So let's not get bogged down in the past of who did what to me, and this is why I feel this way, and this is why I don't have confidence or whatever. What can I do now? I'm a very looking ahead kind of person, and I've tried to show that in my books, in that women who were unable to look forward, you know, they had to suffer the consequences of that. But women, like I was giving you Sita's example, how terrible is her situation? She's heavily pregnant. Lakshman just leaves her in the forest. He's like, bye bye, you can't go back. And, the shock. But she's not, yes, she will express it, she will feel it. We should not ever, ever suppress our feelings. Every feeling that I feel, and that all of us, all our listeners, every feeling that we feel, we are entitled to feel. But let's not get bogged down in that because that's not helpful to us. So, having expressed her sorrow, having felt the pain, Sita's like, now I'm going to look at what is possible. And I think that's a big lesson, right? We all, I think, would be helped by saying, okay, life has dealt a bad card to me, a really bad card. Am I going to spend the rest of my life just crying over it? No, I'm going to see what's possible. I'm going to look ahead and intelligently make some decisions. It's not easy. I'm not saying that at all. But that's why, again, I go back to mentoring. I go back to creating a sisterhood. When I'm feeling low, I want
Yeah,
to be able to go to someone who's having a good day and who can say
correct.
to me, you know, things will get better. Come on, we'll think of what's the
Yeah,
next step. And I can do the
yeah.
same for them.
Yeah. And also, I want to say that a lot of times women, even though such a thing hasn't happened to them, they feel, it's like, oh no, I don't want to apply to the job because I may not be right. I mean, we talk ourselves out a lot of times also because, at least for me, when I was at workplace, I wanted someone to recognize me and hand me over here is a promotion to you. It doesn't happen that way. You have to ask for what you want, you know.
So
And
true.
it's not just your thing. Everybody's doing that. It's not like you're doing it. Everybody is saying, hey, I did this, I did that. Where's my promotion? I mean, you have to be able to ask what you
Yes,
deserve
and you
also.
know,
I think.
yes, so true. And I think as Indian women, as South Asian women, we have another problem, which is we've always been told, don't toot your own horn. Don't.
Correct. Yeah.
It's kind of an
That South
Indian
Asian
thing,
men
right?
and women actually.
Yeah,
It's a
it's an
problem
Indian
in
thing.
our,
It's an
it's a
a
very
cultural
cultural thing.
problem.
Yeah.
So
So
we feel bad about, oh, how can I boast about my. Okay, we got to get over that. We got to get
correct.
over
Yeah.
that. I have to be my best advocate, and then
Correct.
other people will be. But
Yeah.
really, the people don't know what did I go through? How hard did I
Correct.
work? They don't know the depth of my success, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
have to tell, I have to tell people.
So
So
there's
we
a
can't be
couple other
shy about
questions. Yeah. So we have a question from Rajra. First of all, says she's a great fan of yours. Thank you so much for taking the time. She's saying, as a budding writer, age 44, but that's not the point. How do you keep the connection between coming up with an idea and sustaining it for as long as it takes to write it out?
it. It's a great question. It's not easy. I struggle with every new book, and even when I'm writing the book, I will have days of really dry periods where nothing's coming, but you have to keep at it, okay? Consistency. Consistency is the key. So, we have to make some time, and we have to give our art, in our case, this is writing, um, uh, the time and energy that it requires.
Yeah.
Because, and the world is not going to hand you that time. You have to carve it out of your day. You have to simplify your life in other ways so that you can keep going. So, the other thing that I really recommend for writers, especially if you're not in a university program, is to create a writers group. Very helpful and lots of fun.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
have people to share your writing with, you look at their writing, you give them feedback, they look at yours. And together we keep each other motivated because it's
Mm-hmm.
tough. It's tough
Yeah. And
doing
you
it on
also
your
in the
own.
past talked about the discipline of like you have a different part of the house where you write. It's like your office. You go there,
Yeah,
you have to go sit there for a few hours, whether you feel like it or not.
exactly. I
So
still do
there is a
that. I
discipline
still
you
do that.
have about writing also,
Yeah,
you
I
know.
still do that. And if I
Yeah,
can't, and then we have to figure out, right? For me, the best time of day to write is generally at night.
yeah.
Everyone's had dinner. Now they all go to do their thing, and I go to my writing desk, and that's why I'm perfectly okay talking to you at 11:30 or 12
Yeah.
because I don't go to bed that early. This is my writing time. So we have
Yeah.
to figure out exactly the space, the time, where we can be quiet. Because, at least
Hmm.
for me, that's when the ideas will come. I have to be
Hmm.
quiet. It's like a meditation.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, Raja says it. My name is not Rajra. It's coming as Rajra, but it's actually Rashmi. So, okay, Rashmi, great. The other one is Anita is asking, thank you for the inspiration. My question is, how important is it to have a spouse or mentor to support in the making of a successful female writer?
Okay, I have to say, and my husband Murthy, he's a very wonderful and sweet person, and he has supported me for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Um, and although, he started off by wanting to give me writing advice, and we soon decided that that was not,
Not a good idea.
not a good idea. But he's very supportive. Now, but
Yeah,
what are you going to do if you don't have a supportive spouse? If you're going to be a writer, you still have to be a writer. It's great if
yeah.
you have a support, but you really have to look within yourself for support and find a writing community. Another writer can support you much better, or a good reader. A good reader can also be very supportive. Sometimes I
Hmm.
will give early drafts to friends whose literary judgment I really trust, and then they will be supportive. and they'll say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this part needs help, but this part's working really well, and that really, keeps you going. So
Yeah.
writing community is
Mm-hmm.
very important. A reading community is very important. We do this for each other. I read other people's work, but ultimately, we have to say, this is my dream. No matter whether people help me or not, I'm going to keep at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I think even with spouses, you have to ask for what you want. Even they don't know what you want. If you say, hey, I need this time to myself, you have to ask. If they don't give, you still have to take it, So,
Yeah,
so
exactly, exactly. I
yeah,
mean, I'm sure you find this as a
yeah,
successful career
yeah,
woman yourself, that you have to ask, you have to explain why I need this time. And,
yeah,
hopefully a
yeah,
good partner will understand that. But
yeah.
regardless, you have
Yeah,
to.
yeah. So Abha has a question. It's lovely to see and hear one of my favorite authors. Thank you, Harki. I know the question is the new generation of women in the corporate world and otherwise who are bolder, more confident, more firm, more assertive. But world over, such women are branded as rude and mean. How do you advise to deal with such situations and circumstances so they don't move ahead and do not feel demotivated?
Okay. First of all, I'm going to say something that many people may not agree about is you got to stop caring. I
Yeah.
saw a little thing sometime back which said, haters will hate. Haters will hate. People are jealous of you. People are upset by you for whatever
Yeah.
reason. Maybe they didn't get the opportunity, whatever,
Yeah.
maybe they feel threatened by you in their space.
Yeah.
Haters will hate. You just go ahead and follow your dream, okay?
Yeah.
Intelligently. And, this is something I've learned over the years. When you find people with negative energy, just back away from
Yeah.
that
Just
situation.
avoid them. Like,
Just
just
avoid them.
walk away.
And
Yeah.
even if they're in the workspace, unless they're absolutely the person you have to work with every day, you can back off from them. So,
Yeah.
as far
Yeah.
as possible, back away from negative energy. Remind yourself of the truth, which is that you are worth it, right?
Yeah.
We have to trust, we have to be our own cheerleader. We really
Yeah.
do. Nobody
Yeah.
else can be as good a cheerleader for us. Say,
Yeah.
I'm going to work
Yeah.
at it. I deserve success and I will. Okay. The second
Yeah.
thing is look for older mentors, especially mentors who are kind and, mature and compassionate, because they will really help you through this
Mm-hmm.
space.
Yeah.
And third
Yeah.
of all, you just have to, you know, um, a lot of times people will say things, I'll just smile, move on. Unless I
Yeah.
need to engage every once in a while, very rarely, you really need to get into a conflict resolution
Mm.
situation where you have to say,
Yeah.
"Okay, I won't put up with this." But most
Yeah.
of the time, you can just smile, let it roll off your back, and just keep doing your thing. If you're doing a good job, people will recognize it. I think,
Yeah.
bosses, etc., will recognize it. If you are
Yeah.
always a good and helpful colleague, other colleagues will also recognize it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think, but we don't put up with this. We don't put up with
Yeah.
nonsense. I
Yeah.
think
I think
very,
I got one of the best advices on this with my dad. He told me once that if you want to be called a good girl, you got to keep doing what everybody wants you to do. The minute you stop caring about it, those you care about will come with you. The rest don't matter, you know. And so I think we worry a lot about what others think about us also.
yeah.
So I mean, it's
That is,
natural.
yeah. And that's just a part of our Indian culture, our South Asian culture. Log
Yes,
kya kahenge, right? What do
correct. Correct.
people say? I got to let
Yeah.
that go. Got to
Yeah.
let that go.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's not easy, right?
Yeah,
But you have to, like I said, you have to, we have to become our own best friends. We
yeah,
can't depend on other people to be our best friend. Does that make
mm-hmm.
sense? I have to
Yeah,
be my own best friend. I have to be my own cheerleader. I have to give
uh-huh.
myself strength. I have to talk to myself. A
Yeah,
lot of times I have been in bad situations, crying. I go to the bathroom, I'll shut the door, I look at myself in the mirror, and I'll talk to myself. And I'll
yeah,
like
okay.
feel like you're feeling really bad today, but this will pass. It wasn't your fault. Your vision is correct. These things happen to people. Let's move on. Let's think
Mm-hmm.
of one practical thing that we can do to move on. So
Mm-hmm.
I think, that
Absolutely.
talking to myself in the mirror has really helped me.
Yeah.
I remember some bad days, I like crying all over my face, but then I
Yeah.
talk to myself.
Absolutely. Aishwarya is asking, how do you approach publishing part? How do you connect with agents? How do you review and edit? Do you have a favorite editor?
Yeah, I've been blessed to have some good editors over the years. And, some of them have retired, but currently I have wonderful editors, especially in India. I love my Indian editors, my editor from HarperCollins, my editor from Juggernaut, my editor from Pan Macmillan, who put out Palace of Illusions, and 15
Yeah.
years later, they're still putting out new editions. And so I
Yeah.
love all of them because they really understand the culture and where I'm coming from. So a lot of times of course, I will have a separate editor in the US and I listen to what they say in terms of, is this story working, et
Mm-hmm.
cetera, et cetera. Is this book moving smoothly? But for
Mm-hmm.
cultural and psychological input, I always go to my Indian editors.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
wonderful. But
Um,
it didn't happen overnight, right? I had
mm-hmm.
to build that relationship with them. Uh,
Yeah.
books had to, at first the editors would tell me what to do, and I'd
Mm-hmm.
say, like, but now I can say
Yeah.
it more confidently, and
Yeah.
they'll listen to me more. So it's something you
Yeah.
have to go. The best way there's two things that I would recommend for writers who are starting out,
Mm.
especially women. There are some wonderful contests where you
Mm.
can send your work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I think you do a little research with the internet. It's much easier to do the research. What are some good contests where you can send your work, and what are some good magazines where you can start publishing? Because that'll
Mm-hmm.
get your name out there, it'll get your reputation. And once you do that, once you establish a bit of a reputation, then you can start looking for agents and you can tell them, well, look, these are my credentials, and agents will be a lot more willing to
Mm-hmm.
talk. I
Mm-hmm.
think
Yeah, there
even
are a
in
lot of
India,
questions about agents, and I hope that answers
yeah,
in
even in
everything. Yeah.
India, before you could go directly to the publishers, but now if you want a big publisher, you really need an agent. So, do
Mm-hmm.
a little research. But the first thing you need to do is to make sure your writing is good enough and it's getting published. And that's when
Mm-hmm.
the agents will look for you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah.
Look at the
There's
contests. Lots of good contests now. There
Unmu
never used to be
Swati.
when I was in India, but now
Yeah.
there are.
Yeah. And Unmu Swati, a lot of them are writing about how much they love your writing.
Oh, thank
And,
you.
uh,
Thank you. I
and,
love
uh,
hearing from my readers. I really
yeah.
appreciate it.
And then
My readers
Nancy
keep
is,
me going. My readers
yeah.
keep me inspired, truly.
Yes, yeah. So Nancy is asking, personally, I'm stuck with a narcissistic brother who's abusive, and my mother supports him and expects me to still continue to run the house. No family and relative to support. How do I deal with it? That's the first question. And the second one is, women are women's enemy at work. Can you share some thoughts on this reality and what's your message about
Okay, I'll
women?
start with the second one, which may be a little more clear cut. Women can be your enemy, but not all women are going to be your
Yeah.
enemies. So you have to find the ones who are, what shall I say, the ones who are successful and therefore they're more relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe someone who's just clambering and trying to get up there, trying to survive and feels
Mm-hmm.
very stressed. That will not be the person who's
Yeah.
going to support you. Go for the older mentors, and look for people who are successful, but who are kind. And there are those people. So,
Yeah.
you have to go.
And also,
I'm
I just
going to
have to
say
say
one
some of
other
this.
thing.
sorry, some of this thing of women are women's worst enemies is a bit of a myth also. I mean, like it's just something that's been propagated.
Yes,
Yes, there are some
some are, but
women
some
who don't
many are
want you
not.
successful, and there are men who don't want you to be successful also. It's equal,
Exactly.
but I think there is enough women who will help you if you look
I'm
out.
100%. That's been my
Yeah,
experience. And
yeah,
remember, we're talking to women about women, but you will find every once in a while, and in fact, many times you'll find good men out there who are willing to be mentors for you. So,
yeah.
I'm not saying rule them out. I'm saying use them as well, but look for your women mentors because they can mentor you in a whole different way. And there are not some of these other problems that occur when
Mm.
you try to build a relationship with a man at work. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's sometimes just easier. So,
Yeah,
as for your home situation, no, I
yeah.
don't know enough, but I would say um, maybe you can put your foot down a little bit and say, I'm not going to deal with it. If you have a situation where you can go away, at least for a while, then maybe that would be something to think about. Maybe, even to go away to go to school somewhere else, go to college or take a course for a while. No,
Yeah.
we're so many of us, including me, I was really brought up to be non-confrontational, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes we have to overcome that and say, I'm not going to put up with this. And
Yeah.
sometimes, you have to do it intelligently. You don't want to um, create a situation where people become violent. So one of the things I would do is to look for someone who might be like a counselor for you,
Mm-hmm.
in your community, in wherever you are. If you're going to school, maybe there's a counselor at school, or there might be someone, sometimes maybe even your doctor. You can go to your doctor and say, I'm having this issue, it's really stressing me. um, what shall I do? Do you know any resources where I can go? Okay, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's be intelligent, don't put yourself in a position that's going to make things worse, be safe, but you don't have to put up with it. That's one of the things I've learned from dealing with or helping women in really bad domestic violence situations. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we stay in bad situations because we think I have no other option. This is not true. There are lots of things in society to help us. Okay. So if you are having a
Yeah.
real problem, start with friends and positive family members, start with people at work or at school. But if you need to, go the professional route and get some professional help.
Yeah. And also, I think I want to underscore what you said, Chitra, in terms of just saying no sometimes. However, I mean, if you do it a few times, I know it's tough. It's very tough, but
No, it's
just,
scary. It's
yeah,
tough. It's scary. We feel like a bad person. Maybe
yeah,
here's my mother. How can I say no to her? No, no. You have
yeah,
to, like I said, you have to be your own best friend. Who else is
uh-huh,
going to stand up for
yeah,
you, right? You
mm-hmm,
have to
mm-hmm,
stand up for yourself.
yeah. There's Tanya writing about we've entered a digital battleground where movements like the femosphere promote conservative anti-equality gender norms under the banner of feminism, while pseudo-feminism uses feminist language to mask exclusionary or market-driven agendas. In this confusing landscape, how do you believe genuine stories and narrators, especially those from myth or marginalized voices, can help reclaim feminist radical roots and recenter it on justice, nuance, and inclusivity?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's a complex question. There isn't just one answer. I can suggest what I think I would do. I would start with the story. We have to pick a story that really, resonates inside me. And if it
Mhm,
resonates in me and if it is inspiring me, then that's the story that I need to write. And we'll
mhm,
worry about everything else later. I remember that when I was a newer writer, some days I would just start thinking, oh, this story about Indian immigrants or about Mahabharat, why will anyone be interested in it? is no good. We talk ourselves out of
Ourselves out of
things.
things. Yeah. Hmm.
So just have faith in yourself, take it a step at a time. Start with a story that you really love and you see why it's valuable. And then, one step at a time, and not to worry about what others will say. We got
Yeah.
to, as women, um, we tend to do that more
Hmm.
in the
Yeah.
writing field and in other fields. And we have to say, no,
Yeah.
I have something here that's worthwhile. I'm going to believe in it. And let's just
Yeah.
see where it goes. I'm going to put
Yeah.
my full effort into it.
Chitra, do you know any? I mean, there are other questions about abuse and, etc. Do you know any organizations in India that just like there's Maitri in the
Yeah.
US?
There
Um,
are several, but depending,
mm,
they're all very like city specific. So I would strongly recommend for women who need help to do some research and find out what's available in your city. Okay.
hmm, hmm.
And
Yeah, because
they are
yeah,
well advertised. They are well
yeah,
advertised. So
yeah.
I think that's what you need to do, because
Okay.
someone who's in a different city, they might talk to you, but how are they going to help you? You need someone on the ground who will say, all right, if you need to get out of this situation, this is step one, this is step two, this is step three. If you come to us, then we will help you find a lawyer, etc., etc. Right? So you got to find
Yeah,
someone in your own city.
yeah. And I just want to wrap up. There's a lot more questions, but we have to wrap up. So I do want to say, Vidhi is saying that love the way you portrayed and gave voice to Draupadi. Thank you for introducing a feminine-based writing, keeping our ancient epics in mind, a version we never heard before. I think that's sort of, it is by
I'm
far,
so thankful.
yeah,
I'm glad it
uh,
worked out.
yeah,
Who knew? When I was writing Palace
yeah,
of Illusions, actually, my husband said, old story, who will be interested again in it? And
yeah,
I think I
right,
was just at the right place by God's grace at the right time, because soon
yeah,
after Palace came out, this whole movement of rewriting
yeah,
mythological stories started. So, yeah,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just, I'm just
Yeah.
thankful. But it goes on to show that,
Yeah.
you know, we just have to do our part and then just sit back and see what does the universe want for me.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, Chitra, I do want you to, first of all, thank you. And secondly, you keep going. It's, you keep reinventing yourself and all that stuff. So I think one of the things that's very important is to talk a little bit about how you keep the curiosity up, because there were some questions about what do you do if you have no ideas, how do you get new ideas, etc. And I think there is the importance of staying curious and keeping on reinventing yourself. So, what do you do to reinvent yourself? One of the things, I mean, on a fun note, we were talking once, and Chitra said, sometimes I go to parties and people stop talking around me because they think
Because
that I
I'm
might start putting it
listening,
in
yes.
my stories.
I eavesdrop.
So,
I eavesdrop.
you stop. But apart from that, like, how do you keep your curiosity up, or keep the ideas coming? What is your stimulation for that?
Yeah. So I stay engaged in my field because
Yeah.
I'm a writer and I create stories. So I'm very interested in stories. So I read a lot. I really enjoy that. I think if you're going to be a writer, you have to enjoy being a reader first, because
Yeah.
those two things go
Yeah.
side by side. I enjoy watching movies, but I'm always watching them as a writer. When like you said, I go to a party or something and I'm watching people and I'm figuring out what's their psychological, like why are they acting this way? What's the underneath? So I'm always doing quote unquote research for my writing. And
Yeah.
but on a more serious note, I have a meditation practice, which I think really helps me, because
Mm,
when you become very quiet, then things come up,
mm,
inspiration comes up. So I think I recommend that for everyone, no matter what you are doing. When you give
mhm,
yourself that quiet time and you are silent with yourself, it just does some magical things, which
mhm,
I cannot explain and I won't try to. because
Yeah.
there is this spiritual core in us. I believe that all creativity, anything good that we do in the world, comes from that deep spiritual core. And meditation just helps us get in touch with our true self. And I think
Yeah.
over the years, it has helped me in so many ways. I can't
Mm-hmm.
even, I mean, writing is just one way in which
Mm-hmm.
my meditation practice has helped me, and I was just so
Yeah.
thankful. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do want to wrap up by saying I think there were so many things we talked about today. I think the most important things are just having the discipline to keep going and keeping your curiosity up, keep reinventing yourself and
Enjoy, just
enjoy
enjoy.
it. And in some ways, you keep doing the discipline, but stop and meditate. Both are equally
Yes.
important, I think. So
Yes. The
thank you
hard
so much
work
for all
and the
your
silence, the hard
yeah,
work and the
correct.
rest.
It's that, yeah, yeah. Like even athletes, when they
And
finish
just
a
play,
run, yeah,
and just play. Sometimes I
correct.
just write things for fun or read things for fun.
Yeah,
Just have a good time. Hey, life is,
yes.
let's enjoy today.
So
Who knows
that's the
what
message to everybody. Have a good time. That's the end all and be all, the thing that matters the most.
I
And
want to say just one thing,
sure, sure,
Lakshmi,
sure,
which is
sure,
something I realized, and I just want to share it in the spirit of sharing. We
sure.
don't need a lot of things to have a good time. We don't
Yeah.
need a lot of money to have a good time. We don't need a lot of friends to have a good time. We could just have
Hmm.
one friend and we could have
Yeah.
a great time. We don't need to go a lot of places to have a great time, right?
Hmm.
It's happiness is really, I think
Yeah.
I really, really believe it's right here. And
Yeah.
when we see our happiness here, something happens. We become more creative because
Right.
we're not going searching for it elsewhere. When we
Hmm.
rest here, we become more creative.
Yeah, and I must say, one of the things I realized is that if I can actually spend more time with people I already know, it's enough. You don't need to get
Mhm.
anything new. I mean, if we can go deeper with even the fewer people we know, it's very rewarding. In this busy FOMO world, we feel, oh my God, I need to make this. But actually, we all already know who we need to know. And mostly knowing ourselves is the most
Knowing ourselves,
important thing, is,
most
is very
important.
important what you talked about. So thank you so much for your time, Chitra. Namaste, and thank you so
My
much.
pleasure, Lakshmi, and
Okay.
a big hello to everybody who's been listening
Yes, you
in.
have a
And
lot of fan following here, so thank
I
you for
send
your
you all
time.
my love. I send you good wishes and good energy for all your dreams. May they
Thank
come
you.
true.